Welcome to this video. I will be discussing with you the HTML5 forms. HTML5 has made lots of enhancement to the forms and made it more dynamic and help the user validate data. When we say validation, we refer to the fact that users, when they enter data, sometimes they enter wrong data, invalid data. For example, trying to enter the email address instead of the date, or trying to enter a name in the place of email address, or entering a text where you're required to enter numbers. So this is called validation. So gives the user an alert that this data invalid or it's not right and you cannot enter such a data. So validation is very important in web applications and in fact in all programming. So let's go through those, and before we do that we just do a quick revision of the form and the structure of the form. In HTML the form has few components. One is starting by the tag form and closing the form, and later you will find when we do a server-side scripting and JavaScript, we add some additional things to this first tag, which we will discuss it when we come to that. And then comes the component inside the form. For each component there is a label and then input field or select or different type, but the most widely used is the input, and we will be discussing the input in more details. So the label basically tells the user what data they need to enter. For example, here he need to enter or she need to enter the email address, and then this is where the email address will be entered. And there is a placeholder. The placeholder sometimes used instead of the label, or the two together used. The placeholder basically will come inside the input box and will be shaded. As soon as the user starts entering data, it will disappear. So this is the basic structures. Our focus will be most of the enhancement in fact is the input in the input. So we'll be discussing the input with more details. Here is the input, and this is the structure of the input, starting by the tag input, and inside that tag there is a type, and sometimes there is required. I will come to that one, an ID or a class, which we discussed in the past, and then the pattern of the data, how the data will be structured. So we'll come to each one of that. The types is not only text, there are so many different types, and this is what we're going to discuss. So some of those attributes in the type which allow us to do more validation, the list is here. I think there are here 13 different attributes. For example, if you use the URL here, the form will force the user to enter a URL starting by HTTP or HTTPS and the structure. If you use date and time, it will become date and time, and when he or she click on it, it will open a calendar where you choose the date and time you want to do. And there is also date and time for a local time. If you are in anywhere in the world in your local time, you will get directly your local time and date on the screen. And then the email we have seen, the normal date, search if you want that field to be used for search as well, and those different type of attributes, color, range, month, week, and all this thing. Telephone number here as well. So these are attributes will force the user to enter data that match one of those attributes based on what you select. The other one is required. If you use required, if you don't use it, then it's not required. But if you use required, the form cannot be submitted without adding data for that field. So that means the field is necessary and you have to enter data for that field. So this will force the user to enter data for this field. And then the last one comes here, the pattern of the data. And if, for example, in this example here we have in front of us, the user is required to enter 3 uppercase letters. The brace here specify how many you need to enter. So they need to enter 3, and they are uppercase from A to Z, and required to enter 4 digits between 0 and 9. So this is good when you want the data to be entered in a specific format. For example, in HCT, the student ID starts by H uppercase and then 2 digits or 3 digits, zeros, and then some digits at the end. So you want to force the user to enter the data in that right format, so you can use the pattern in this case. Coming to the other one is the range, which the minimum and maximum. If the user need to enter a number and you want to limit the user to enter the number between different range, so you can add a minimum and you give it a value, and a maximum and you give it a value, and then step. What is the use of step? Because when you do that, you get on the page, you get something like this with an arrow. You can go up and go down. If you make step 1, when you press up, it will go from 3 to 4. If you make it 2, if you press, it will go from 3 to 5. So the steps will give you an idea, or will make it move, increment, or goes down by that step. And this is usually good if you want the user to limit data between a range. Outside that range is not allowed. Like, for example, you're entering student marks, which should be between 0 and 100, and that you cannot enter data outside that, or something like this. Okay. So the next one is the maximum length. So you have a field and you want to limit it to certain number of characters. You don't want the user to enter more than 12, and this is our example. So you can use max length. Max length will limit the length of that field, and in our case here it's 12. So if you have something like this and you can enter only 12 characters in it, and that will limit the length of that field. Sometimes this is matching a database table column, and you wanted to match each other, and that's one thing you can do. Now, there are cases when you want to allow the user to submit data even if the data is not valid. Why? Because you want to get data from that user in whatever format, and later you can submit it. You still can give him an alert saying this data is not correct, but still you can accept the data. If you want to do that, you need to add NoValidate to your form. Remember, this is going to the form, not to the input field. It's to the form. And see that NoValidate, then the data can be submitted even if the user entered the incorrect data or invalid data. And that's can be used in some cases. Now, the last, I think this is the one before the last one, is the data list. Data list is similar to select, where the user, when he or she entering data for a field, he can get some recommendation from the system, and that recommendation called data set. So start after your input, you add a data set tag, and you give it an ID for the sake of later doing some CSS, and then you close your data set, and inside you'll have different data or rows you want to show: white, milk, dark. Oh, okay, you put whatever you want and the list you want to have. And then this, when the user start entering that field, those comes on the screen. You put W, the milk white will come. M, the milk will come. D, the dark will come. And so this will help the user select data. But the user still can enter a different data from the three. But this is just like guidance to the user. And one thing, if you want to do that, you should add list equal, and you add the same name you have here, you add it here, and this way it will work. So that's it. That will same thing we're saying here. It is different from select, because select will force you to choose one of the three. But with data list, you can have different from the data. You can opt for adding a different data. But with select, you have no option. You have to choose one of the three. And this is the main difference between the two. Okay, as you know now, most web browsers has the autocomplete features that they have. So you enter your name, it will ask you, do you want to autocomplete the form? Then it will fill the whole form for you with your data that's stored in your browser. Sometimes you don't want that to happen. You want to force the user to enter the data, because you want to make sure he is the one. For example, he entering a credit card. You don't want to do autocomplete for a credit card, and you want to ensure he has the card or she has the card in hand and enter the data correctly. In that case, you can add to your input autocomplete equal off. So this way you disable the autocomplete, so the browser will not complete the data. Great. The one before the last we do now is the autofocus. When you go to a page and you want that field to be autofocus, means if you start typing, it will enter the data in that field. This is similar to Google. When you visit Google and you go to google.com and start entering data, automatically it will enter the data into this field, because this field is autofocus. So if you want to make any field autofocus, you need just to add this with nothing. It's not autofocus equal on or no, it's just autofocus to the input, and that field will be autofocus on your page. For sure, you cannot have more than one field with autofocus, so you need only one to be autofocus to use. Now, to format your page, you want to give an alert to the user. When the user enters the wrong data in a field, it becomes red. If the data is correct, it will become blue. So how you do that? You need just this simple CSS3, which apply to all inputs. If input is not valid, then it become red. So just using outline, 2 pixels, solid red. You can do outline or you do border, or all of it will work. And in the other case, when everything is okay, it will become blue. So you just add this CSS3 code to your header section, to style, or to external CSS3 that you link to your page, and it should work perfect. Thank you for listening, and I hope you found this video good. Thank you. Bye-bye. هل هذا سجل ولا ما سجل؟